Benny is here, and Benny. Okay, so I don't know where to start. You've heard all my long thing there. So.
Okay, so let me ask you, did you see the notes I sent you a couple of weeks ago about my take on Jeffrey?
I did see them, and then I got distracted. So you're going to have to start.
Okay. But
normally I
the
read
reason
everything,
I sent...
Benny. I got so overwhelmed.
Yeah, no problem. But the reason I sent it to you...
Maria's saying something to you on the screen here. So
yeah, it's in Danish. It says,
Danish,
speak loud and clear.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I didn't know she was saying something naughty or not, but she's not.
She doesn't know that you know some Danish.
Yeah,
right?
I know 5 words, Benny. So that's okay. So start with your number one note. What was your number one note about Dahmer?
No, what the notes I sent you was for a reason, because I wanted to make sure that you knew my take on Jeffrey before you did the show, because otherwise I could just be adjusting my views to your views. But the thing is, I saw right through Jeffrey a long time ago, just like you presented it here. The funny thing is, we almost 100% agree on what you said.
We usually do, Betty. That's what's weird. You are probably the closest to being agree. Before I start shows, you often send things over, and I'm like, I can't say anything too much about that, what you just sent over, because that is actually my viewpoint. So it's interesting that, generally speaking, we are often on the same page, which is interesting.
Yeah, and you have the ability to recheck it if you want to see if I'm lying. But okay, first forward to discussing the case of Jeffrey Dahmer, because this is a hot tomato for somebody. This is like a caveat or a word of caution here, because again, sorry for my broken English and heavy Danish accent, but you're used to it. But the discussion.
Betty, you keep saying that, but you sound perfect every time I talk to you. So.
No, thank you for that's too kind. But about the discussion about Jeffrey Dahmer, for me, I'm definitely not an admirer of Jeffrey Dahmer in any way, and I know you are not either, and I would never glorify him or make him famous or even express fascination for anything he did. We are agreeing on that part, but as this is an educational channel, he is a good case for profiling, I think.
True.
The mindset, right, to understand what does he do and why did he do these things, right? And also because he's a bit different than other serial killers, in my opinion. So he's an interesting case, and many people have strong opinions about him. And I did watch the Netflix Monster series. I also watched the My Friend Dahmer movie.
Oh, I didn't get to see My Friend Dahmer. How was that one?
Okay, but it was about his time up to when he went out of school and the graduation before he did the first killing. And then I, of course, watched the Stone Village interview where his father Lionel was there also, and the Inside Edition interview, and of course the trial. I watched that, and also other documentaries. And I read about him since the mid-90s. Actually, he caught my attention. So why
Benny,
do I find Jeffrey
I just want to say to everybody, so Benny has much more knowledge than myself.
No.
You really do. I mean. Obviously, I've read about Dahmer in the past. I've been in profiling for years, right? So, especially when I first was researching in the beginning, where I was learning about all the serial killers and why they did things and what their methodologies were, what the police investigations were. But then years went on, so I've forgotten an awful lot. So I had to do a crash course with the 3 pieces of information I was able to get, the 2 Netflix ones and the book. But you have actually been probably much more steady in your learning about Dahmer. So I'm really interested to see what you have for me.
There's a reason. There's a reason why I have to read a ton of things just to get an idea of it, and you just have to read 3 lines and you get the right idea right away. So that's why. But I think he's an interesting case because how many serial killers do we have that only kill incidentally? Okay, again, we have to say from the start, we only know what Jeffrey told us, and we will pick and choose from that. But there are a few necrophilia killers out there, but it's very rare that they don't kill for the thrill of the kill, they don't kill for the lust of torture or control of power, but just to get rid of the person they rape and torture, not to get identified. So normally serial killers kill for these reasons, but Jeffrey was a bit different, right? But there are 7 parts in this discussion, and I'm going to read the One is a little longer part that we can discuss. But the second part is his personality, and then his crimes, and then his family, and then the victims, and then the trial, and then finding religion, and then the part 7 is mental sickness and diagnosis. So the first part is, of course, the longer part, the personality. Okay, so what I wrote to you is something like this. Now, you told me, you said before in the show that it was a combo, like a nature and nurture, and I totally agree, because it's just like alcoholism. It can be triggered. Some people have an inclination to become an alcoholic. It's a genetic thing. It's a scientific fact. So also the makeup of a guy who has an inclination to become a psychopath, but there might be a trauma that triggers it early on. And the hernia operation at the age of 4 with Jeffrey might have done that, because they said he changed drastically at that time. I actually had a hernia operation when I was 4 years old. So,
and that's what happened to you, Benny.
Careful. And also the roadkill. Here's what I think is interesting. The roadkill and interest in internal organs of animals. I don't think that's odd, Pat. I don't think it's odd at all. If you want to become a vet or a doctor, that's quite natural interest, right? And I can also relate to being interested in seeing an animal and human beings' internal organs, just out of curiosity. But the difference between me and Jeffrey is I would not kill for it.
Right.
He would. Yeah. So I.
Well, interesting. He didn't apparently, and we don't know for sure that he didn't kill animals to get them. See, again, we're hearing this from Jeffrey. So. Did he run into a whole lot of roadkill? Because it depends where you live. I mean, I live next to a road, and we end up with dead deer all the time near us. There's all kinds. I mean, there are all kinds of dead animals. But I wonder how much access he had to finding roadkill. I mean, if he wasn't driving around by himself or walking down roads, how often did this happen, that he happened to come across roadkill, or did he ever kill in order to have that same thing you had later? We don't know, because it's Jeffrey telling us how those dead animals ended up in his possession. So, we'll have to, we just don't know whether he did kill animals.
No, that's an excellent point. Actually, we don't know. We only know what he told us.
And the operation thing, the surgery thing, that. There's a ton of children who go through surgery, some brutal surgery at young ages. They don't turn into psychopaths. However, see, this is where I think it gets confusing. It isn't often necessarily the actual malady the person has, or the illness, or the surgery, or the pain, but how the parents are dealing with it. So if the parents aren't there, if they ignore the child, if they don't respond well to the child's needs and all that stuff. So it can be not the actual thing that happened, but the response to the thing that happens that leaves them with that feeling of you don't give a crap about me.
I'm going to go with a different angle. I'm thinking that he was exposed to some internal organs at the hospital at that age. I think he saw something that really caught his interest, and he didn't know what it was, but it was
what would he
something
say? What would he say?
I don't know, but at the hospital you have, when you're lying in bed, you've been operated. At that time you were hospitalized for days.
Right.
An operation, you see different things, and that might have triggered his interest in internal organs and things like that. But that is just a private idea.
Because generally speaking, they don't allow children to see anything. It's very, very. They don't like say, here's your hernia. No. An adult might go, I want to see what you took out of me. That wasn't it. Supposedly he thought they cut his penis off. That was supposedly a claim that his father made. And we end up with a little bit of again, a problem of Lionel seems like he's telling certain amount of truths, but I see places where he just leaves out big pieces of information. And part of that is maybe he doesn't remember, because I, quite frankly, have trouble remembering a lot of my children's childhood. Sorry, kids.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't remember you before 3. No. But, you remember things in bits and pieces. And those of us like myself who have terrible memories anyway have, I'm just not one of those that can rattle off everything my kids ever did. But Lionel seems to have dropped issues and things. I go, wait a minute. What did you do about that? Wait a minute, what about this? He drops them. So I don't know that anything Lionel says we can believe, just like Jeffrey, with 100% accurate. It's not necessarily accurate. It's his version of events. And remember, he's looking for a reason for his child to seemingly be okay till he's that age and then turn into something else. But there's all kinds of things happening in the home with a mother and him that were neglectful and isolating, that this may just have been one more thing that, you know, that the kid got dumped, he thought dumped in the hospital. Maybe mommy didn't visit him. We don't even know. He doesn't mention that, you know. So we don't know whether this just compounded things, not because of the actual surgery, but the parents' reaction to the surgery and how they handled it. So that may be a turning point, but I don't know why.
No, it was just a theory. And also, I want to say, I have the day off tomorrow, so I can go on all night. So it depends on your time schedule. I don't have any limit.
This is we're not in any big rush here. I mean, there are people who will watch the video and they leave during part of the video and they're like, I'm done. They do that with me all the time because they're like, Pat, could you have shorter videos? I'm like, no, not really, because I can't cover the material because I'm an educator. I'm not just here to get hits. Yes, I could do a 15-minute video and make some people happy, but that's not what I'm about. So mine are always longer, and so I'm not particularly worried. So there are people who will be going on their way and maybe come back later, because the advantage of YouTube is you can stop the video and come back another time and listen to the rest of it. Exactly. Isn't that wonderful?
And and we'll save the most wonderful stuff until the end.
I did think of doing this. I mean, it's always, I don't know if I can do this now. Separate into two sections. I was going to do that, but then I said, oh, the heck with it. Because you were here, and I thought I'll just go ahead. So, and continue, because many people who are here would like to hear another viewpoint and another discussion that is a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, then I'll just read some of the notes here.
Okay.
I wrote to you that, first of all, you claim he's a psychopath, and that's what I wrote. He is almost the perfect psychopath. He is the one who comes closest to being a human robot, because actually, when I say he has no moral compass, what I mean is he has no conscience. The conscience doesn't exist for him. He has no remorse. He has no feelings of empathy. He knows all about what is right and wrong, as you said, but he just doesn't care for what is right and wrong, because the moral compass is not there. He doesn't have to listen to that. And he can also, if he had just a tiny bit of that conscience, he would break it down, because what was important for him is to get what he wanted. So he was never, completely honest. He was manipulating and lying whenever it fitted his agenda and purpose. And that's what I wrote to you. The goal was all for him, which is himself. All things that he did was a means to an end to get into that situation where he had complete control of the person that became the victim. And here's the funny thing that I think that most people are, I don't know if it just escapes them, but I think that you touched a little about it, because everybody says he was socially awkward. And I see that when I see him walking, I see the videos, and I see his motor skills, he's stiff. He is socially awkward, but yet he was able, and listen, he was able to put on a charming personality to hook up with a lot of good-looking guys at bars and bath clubs, which proves that he was able to put on a personality that fit the situation when he needed it.
Yeah.
So that shows the level of manipulation he was able to do, because he was socially awkward, but he was able to pull it off with a good-looking guy, not just one time, not just two times.
Over and over.
Yeah, and I hope my wife doesn't listen to this, because, when I was young, I found it difficult to hook up with, with ladies, because I wasn't that good looking. But you have to have a certain charm. You have to have some communication skills to hook up and convince them to go to your apartment. Right? So he could do that. He could do that, even being socially awkward.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was much more skilled at manipulating people, and that's what I think the neighbor who kept saying how much he liked him. But this guy has no reason to like his neighbor particularly. He wasn't even spending time in Dahmer's apartment. You know what I'm saying? But he seemed to like him anyway, a lot. And it's like, why did you like this guy so much? He was just your neighbor. So he must have been able to be charming enough or soft enough or sweet enough or whatever it was to get them. But here's an interesting thing about psychopaths, and why I think, again, we're not talking about he couldn't take these people leaving him. Dahmer only had so much time he could be nice. He had a real limited, he didn't like to spend extra time with people. So even when the neighbor said, hey, why don't you come over and blah, 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 he didn't do it because I think he only had very short period of time where he was able to pull off nicety. Yeah. So he wasn't, if you look at any of these people, he didn't actually have much time with them before he drugged them, before he attacked them, because he really, here's what I think. He really didn't have the time for that crap. He really wasn't interested in having a nice conversation.
It's just like,
he just wanted to get what he wanted. He was like, okay, exactly. I've been here for 10 minutes. I'm done. And
it's like, I would compare it to, the guys going to the discos, picking up a girl, and the girl wants a charming romantic foreplay, but the guy wants the sex, right? So it's like Dahmer, he wants to get to the chase right away. Right?
There's no
as fast as he can,
with him.
Right? Yeah, no, there's no, and he lacks the social skills also to get into that situation where they feel comfortable that he's a nice person, but he can mimic some social skills that make them believe that he is a nice person, but only for so long. They will
just enough to get him into the apartment. Then he becomes creepy so quickly that because he has no interest in normalcy. It's like he doesn't want to sit there and kiss and hug and start doing the foreplay stuff. He just wants to get to doing creepy stuff, and so therefore he has to drug them very quickly or hit them over the head because pretty soon they're going to go, yeah, you're creepy. I got to get out of here, which some of them did say that, which is why they hit him over the head. But he didn't have, this is also interesting to note that psychopaths, a lot of times they're able to get jobs and certain things where they get to a job interview. And the guy says, well, he seemed normal in the job interview. But as soon as we got him hired, the guy creeped us all out because then it's not just 30 minutes. Or 20 minutes. It's now 8 hours. And the psychopaths cannot fake it that long. They cannot.
Exactly.
So now only people that seem not to be fooled are families, but that's because they keep trying to justify and keep, as Lionel says, you keep this hope out that you can help your kid somehow. He's going to be normal by next time he'll become normal. And so you simply ignore an awful lot of stuff and pretend it's not so.
Yeah. And so, also that's a part of the next thing I wrote is that when I watch him and I study him, the way I can study him is he's void of any emotions, and he's actually, I think he's incapable of showing also, real emotions. In fact, I never seen, and I dare people to show me a clip where he expresses any emotions in any way. He just talks in the same monotone, no matter what he's talking about.
No, check those videos out in the conversation ones. He's got home videos where he's actually quite charming for a few minutes. And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's what tells you he can fake it. I don't know whether in the home videos he was faking it or he does have moments. And I think even those guys can have moments where they're having fun for some reason. Just not very often and not for a long time. And not, when he's alone with the body, he might be just the greatest character ever. If only for a way to recognize it, but
But what I'm saying is that I think that is not showing real emotion. I think that he's, like you say, he's putting on a charm, he's putting on a manipulation that you can easily see. Okay, now he's just playing that, but showing emotion. What I mean is breaking down and cry or tremble in his voice, or his eyes will be red with tears. He never shows emotion, and when he talks about what he did, it's like reading a grocery list. When he talks about cannibalism and dismembering people, it's exactly the same as when he talks about anything else that happened in his childhood that was just normal. He doesn't have any emotions in anything he says. And he uses the word compulsion a lot. There was this compulsion, but the compulsion is just, my take is that is just a force of thought. That is something that forces you to do something, but it has to be rooted in something, in a desire or in a lust. I can have a compulsion to wash my fingers all the time because, I'm afraid of germs. There can be a compulsion, but it has to be rooted in some mindset, some lust, some desire, some crazy thoughts. So whatever, he only reveals that it was just to have control over the person, complete control, and that was the compulsion. But the compulsion is just, the train of thought that leads you to do it. But the root, the root cause, the lust, where it lies in your heart, what you want to do, is another thing. And I don't think he ever really revealed it, except he said he wanted control. And I think that the good part, when you did your analysis, you said that we don't know what he did to those people, only what he told us he did.
Right.
Well, because he told us, like, he had interaction with them before they were killed. But I don't think so. Because I don't think that he wanted somebody who could move at all. But he didn't want to kill them. He wanted them to be completely like a mannequin, but it had to be, the flesh of a person.
Right.
So the compulsion is rooted in some lust for necrophilia, but he didn't want a dead body. He wanted the live body that was like a dead body, something like that. I think that's the best explanation I can come up with.
One thing I can compare that to is there are men out there who, roofie women, and they love the concept that the woman is unconscious at the time they have sex with her. Because again, it's the total power and control. I get the enjoyment of the body. I get to enjoy what I do. And she doesn't ask anything of me. She asks nothing of me. And I can do whatever I want to her, and she's not going to complain. But she's not actually dead. She's just totally unconscious. Now, why Dahmer just didn't do a better job of roofing people and then enjoy them and then just have them wake up and be confused and go away, like he did in the bathhouse, is a good question. And it may be because he wanted to have that person, the quote of not leaving. Yet he didn't want them to leave after an hour or two. He didn't want them to wake up. Maybe also because they could rat him out, because people who are off to go to the police. But this way, if he could keep them in a better condition longer, he could then enjoy the experience for quite a few hours or even a few days before things go badly. So, but again, we don't actually know, because he could lie about a whole bunch of stuff. We wouldn't have a clue. Because they're all dead and they can't complain, and say he's wrong. So.
Yeah. We only have the report from Tracy Edwards, right? The escape, what he did.
One person. I mean, it's like another. Yeah, that's pretty limited. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he comes across. I would say, this is interesting for me, because I think I can dictate lie in some way, but I think he does come across as genuine and honest when he talks. And yet we know for a fact that a psychopath would lie at every turn to get what he wants. So he will also be truthful to gain what he wants. So sometimes he's truthful, sometimes he lies. We just don't know, because he has years and years of training of manipulating people. In fact, all people around him, like you said, not just the victims, because people just think that it was the victims. No, I think that it was everybody. And so he can play that role of a quiet, trustworthy, genuine guy in any situation, which he's using after he got caught. Also during the trial and the interviews, he comes across as a genuine, trustworthy, forthcoming guy who is just, he's just doing what he does best. He's manipulating, and he's maybe the very best in the serial killer's class of manipulating. He's one of the only ones who actually make people think that he is really being honest and taking the blame solely himself for his crime, which is partly a manipulation on his part. That is what I think.
And it may just be because it's so overwhelming too. There was just no way to get around it. But the question is, he's supposed to have 9 years of not killing anybody.
Yeah.
Did he really? And they say, well, he absolutely gave us the truth about all the people he killed, which is a ridiculous thing to say, because who's to say he didn't kill somebody else? And he's just not admitting that one. Just because he admits 17, and they're like, well, if he admitted 17, he would, and he admitted a couple that we didn't know about. But again, they were in non-death penalty states.
Yeah, exactly. So. I completely agree. And again, I asked myself, when he was caught, what did he want? What was his aim of manipulating? the manipulation he was doing at the interviews. What was his goal there? Because it was not to get a victim, right? And I think it was compassion for us. I think he wanted to play that role that he could. When he went into a bar, he was a trustworthy guy. You can trust me. I'm honest with you, and this built up a trust between us. And I think he did that in an interview, and he fooled everybody to think that he was just completely honest, and he took the blame for everything. And he's just we had compassion for him, but he that was how he lured his victims also.
That's true.
The way he went. So I think that you can believe whatever you want to believe in his interviews, because you can pick and choose just whatever you want, because it might not be true in it.
Well, I thought it was interesting when you talk about lying. Remember the part where I talked about the altar thing, right? So he's building this thing where he's got all the skulls, and the defense attorney says, well, you did that because you wanted the people to stay with you. And he's like, oh, okay, that's it. He went and agreed with her. She did something she shouldn't have done, which was lead him. But he was perfectly willing to go with it because that made him seem insane. But if he just said the truth, and it's funny because he did also tell the truth. He did say on the other part, he goes, well, I like the total and entire control. So it's weird. He admitted the truth, in my opinion, but at the same hand, he was willing to go with her. So take your pick on which it was. She was trying to lead him into the insanity thing. And actually, he sort of agreed with her, but then sort of told the truth. So it's kind of a funny thing. So
yeah. And that makes it all more difficult to analyze it.
That's true.
But the next part is the crimes.
Okay.
Right off the bat, I've got to say, I remember in the old days, because now I only have my friend Jack Daniels, and I'm not going to get really drunk. But in the old days, when I was young and I was on a bender, I was thinking, because he drank so much, he was so drunk, how can he control the situation and the victims up to the point where he put the sleeping pill in the drink? I mean, I'm just astounded that he could do that. He could control the situation when he was so drunk.
Right. Well, I think there's a couple things here. First of all, we don't actually know how drunk he really was. Secondly, if he was an alcoholic, he could drink a lot more than most people can and still maintain enough to be able to put the drugs in their drinks. So, but that also may be why he can't perform well until they're, it's like, well, I got to keep him around longer because I tried to do something, but I couldn't get it up because I'm so drunk. Yeah. So I got to keep him, here so I can eventually be able to do something with him. So,
and I think that the interesting thing is not that he killed, and I put quote unquote 17 people. Or more or less, I don't know, but at least he claims 17.
Well, we know I think the 17 is accurate, but maybe more. Yeah.
Maybe more. Yeah. But probably. Yeah. Let's just say that they can link all the victims to him,
correct,
because of what he said. Yeah.
Right.
So probably more.
And the fact that most of them were actually in his apartment, and the other ones, the grandma's house, there were things there. So it's like kind of hard not to link into those.
So we'll say, well, how did he end up here? Well, I didn't do anything to him. Yeah, of course. But what sets him apart from the rest is that that he did not kill them. It was incidentally that he killed them. It wasn't driven by that rage or thrill of the kill or the torture or anything. But again, we don't know if because after he killed the first one, not the first one, not Stephen Hicks, but the one in the Ambassador, where he says he doesn't really remember, he had a blackout. Maybe he had really enjoyment in the killing process.
That's possible.
So maybe that was like the next stage. First you play the role of you lure them into your apartment, you get them under your control, and you do whatever you want to do while they're alive, because you can hear the heartbeat, which was a fetish he had.
That's true too.
And then after that, he had the great enjoyment in killing them and dismember them and eating them. So it became, I think, an MO for him.
Right. We don't know. I think it's important, Brian, because you pointed out. Okay, so he gives them drugs. That may immobilize them enough. Their eyes could still be open, and he could be He could be doing things to them. He could even be torturing them, because we'll never know, because he messed up their body so bad, right? So he could be torturing them and getting a kick out of torturing them, because he got that power and control over them, and watching them in terror and in pain, because they can't do much about it, but he's still doing it to them. And then eventually strangling them. He might get a darn good thrill out of strangling them. We just don't know that he enjoyed those parts, because he claims he did not do those things. His whole claim is that he only wanted to have them not functional, unable to do anything, to keep them there. That's his story. And he's figured out what the best story is, especially with the defense attorney. Mind you, the defense attorney will sit there and help you find the best story. He could have sat there with the defense attorney and said, I love strangling him. He goes, don't go there. Let's leave that one out. Yeah. I did sometimes torture them. No, let's not go there. Let's just say you just immobilized them, and you only strangled them to kill them. You didn't get any kick out of it, and then you got to do what you wanted. Let's just stay with the insane part. Let's not go with the violent, sadistic, creepy, I like to kill and torture people part, because that nobody's going to have any sympathy for you then. Let's just go for the sympathy part. So we don't know whether he actually did any of those things to all those people, and that the defense attorney didn't present that.
No, and actually, when we think about the cannibalism, because, like you said, I don't think that for a minute that it was because there could be a part that he wanted them to be a part of him, but that was not the abandoned issue. I think that was more like empower him, like he becomes more godlike the more he ate their flesh, right? Because it will feed his ego, and he could be, it's a token of power and control, because he says, you know what, that the guy, he's inside me, it's like a power. Do
you remember the German serial killer? I did the book. Let me look over here. Interview with a Cannibal. It's Gunter Stomp's book. I did the profile for that book and the editing on that book. And that guy, I forgot his name now. But he enticed people to come, and he wanted to kill them and eat them. And that was his big cheap thrill. And it wasn't because he wanted a relationship with them. Because outside of, but he didn't even try
somebody answered his ad.
Right.
I want to eat you and kill you.
And eventually he did the have a good glass of wine with body parts. You know what I mean? So he was like, I'm dining with you now. But I hardly think that's a relationship, except with your own self.
No. But it was consensual, and it was a contract, and he ate him while he was alive.
Yeah, I have to do a video on that, because that was one of the weirdest cases ever.
His name is Memes or something like that.
I forgot. I did the book, and I can't remember his name now. I have to look it up.
Also, I think that you talked about something, what he could have done if he was into some fetish. He could have, the sadist part and the masochist part. But I think, there's something, there is an odd fetish. I don't know what it's called. There are people who have a fetish, like they like to be, I saw a show about it, they like to be mummified, like tightened completely for hours and hours and then let out again. This could have been something that Jeffrey could have sought out, somebody that was willing to be mummified.
Absolutely.
And then he could have been gratified by being with that, like in a mummified state for a certain amount of time, and letting that person out. Right. So even with his fetish, which was really weird, he could have, he didn't have to kill people.
That's true.
He could have so that's just what I thought about.
All you have to do is put an advertisement in the paper. Now you do it online, but there are so many people who like to be involved in very weird sexual things that you can find people pretty much do anything you would like, but that would require actually having to spend time with them. I don't think he liked that part of it, even to the point of having to, even if you had to tie them up and do bondage, I think it still annoyed him that they were getting anything out of it. He didn't care that they got anything out of it, even if they were being tortured. He's like, I don't think he really tortured the people. I really do think he went straight to I think he strangled them because it put them out. I personally don't think he did the sadistic stuff very much, because I just don't think that interested him, because sadism requires a response. And somebody who agrees to things requires a response. So there is a relationship there, small though it may be. It's temporary though it may be. It's a relationship. Jeffrey doesn't like relationships at all. He wants them just to be his doll, just a better one than that crap that he got from the mannequin he got. Because, modern science hadn't improved enough where you can go online now and get for $400, you can get yourself a pretty hot doll.
Exactly. Right now you can.
You can indeed. It's like, whoa, that's creepy, you know. But you can get
and
that.
They don't argue, but they don't cook. So I don't know.
We hope you don't know. Oh my goodness.
Okay, so the part 3 is the family, and I only have a few comments on that. I think the father, Lionel, because you covered it all, it was so great what you said. But I think what was interesting for me was the interview with Stone Phillips, where Lionel was sitting beside him. You know what? What I was thinking, Lionel, you are a psychopath too. You speak the same monotone. You don't show any emotion. At some point, they turn to each other, and Jeffrey says to his father, I love you. And his father said, I love you too. And they gave each other a hug. But it was just like reading from a manuscript. It was so phony. But both of them, they don't express. Lionel, when does he express any emotion? I think that he has the same, traits of psychopathy. And don't come after me. I said that, I think he has.
It's valid, because I remember I said in the Netflix thing, I thought they were overdoing the emotional part of his father, and that bugged the heck out of me. It was also irritating. That was the one thing I thought they did poorly. I think he was and he does say that in his book. He thinks his son may be very much like him, that he lacks himself the ability to have these kind of emotions. So he does admit that. I don't personally think he's a psychopath, but I do think he has some level of, I don't know how I can say it, detachment. I think he has some level of kind of almost a mix between Asperger's and narcissism, in there, that he's unable to, and that maybe it drove his wife nuts, because she just couldn't get him to respond enough. And he does admit to that. So of course you say, no, Jeffrey admits to things too, so his dad's just good at that as well, telling his truth, But I didn't see him as quite as devious and controlling. I think he just doesn't function.
Did you say
well.
Asperger's? Did you say that he had traits of Asperger's? Because that was interesting if you said that, because many people have diagnosed Jeffrey with traits of Asperger's, and actually, I talked about before some case with Nathan Carman, the one who took the ship out, and his mother was lost, but he's Asperger's too, and he has the same monotone as Jeffrey Dahmer.
Right.
But they say that's because of his Asperger's. But that would explain some of that monotone not showing real emotion. Yeah, that social awkwardness also. Okay, it was just.
I think it's difficult, Benny, because I've always had this problem with trying to do the labels really well, because these days, everybody apparently has a label. For example, I'm pretty sure people have actually accused me of this. So I've been labeled, I've been labeled a psychopath.
You are?
Yeah, you didn't know. I've had people label that, and it's like, I see you've got this grandiose thinking. You think you're a big-ass profiler, and I see you chuckle though you have no empathy. I've had that. I've also been, somebody says, oh my God, I can so recognize your ADHD. And I'm like, okay. I talk fast, that's true, but I blame it on New Jersey, and because people from New Jersey talk fast. I also blame it on, I have I think quickly, and therefore I speak quickly and I write quickly. So it's like a train of thought. I have to keep up with it. And is that ADHD? I don't know. When I was growing up, nobody labeled me that. No kid I know had ADHD or ADD, but now everybody has it. Adults have it. So it's like we're really into labeling now. So, and then we're into over labeling and overlapping labeling. So it's like, so what am I? I'm dealing with a fly. That's what I am. So
I tell you what, Pat, I never seen anything of that, the traits you're talking about. Whatever, I only seen, and I think that everybody will agree that it's on the Patron. It's a beautiful, intelligent woman profiling the heck out of any case. So I never seen any trait of that.
isn't Benny nice? Don't go talk to my children.
Well,
no, no, but
I can manipulate.
There are, I always talk about the narcissistic continuum and how it's difficult sometimes to determine whether a person has, for example, grandiose thinking. How is that different from dreaming and thinking big? One is, to me, there's a difference. That you can have a dream and think, I could maybe achieve that. That's not necessarily unhealthy. But if you say to yourself, like some psychopaths do, well, I'm with, and they usually lie with it. That's the thing; they lie with it. So it's a pack of, it's like I'm in the Marines and I was in Delta Force or whatever. I don't know my stuff on military, and they create a fake persona based on something grandiose. There are people also like Jim Jones want to become somebody who leads the flock to disaster. He's talking to God and he's coming up with these concepts. It's grandiose thinking, but it's also psychopathic thinking, which allows you to manipulate people and I don't even know that they believe that crap. They're just telling other people they believe that crap. So it gets really tricky as to, we all have self-interest. It's not necessarily a lack of empathy for others. We have self-interest. So we have the point where's the line between no empathy and the fact that we also have to consider ourselves. I always point this out with like you're playing a table tennis game, because I play table tennis. When I go to play table tennis, I immediately think I want to beat the other person. That's why you play the game. It's like, I'm going to beat you, and when you beat them, you feel inside a happiness. I got you. I beat you.
Yeah.
Now the other person looks sad. I lost. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we're unempathetic to the opponent?
No.
Yeah. So, but theoretically, what happens is that we do have empathy toward the opponent. We know what it feels like to lose, and we're like, sorry about that, dude. I'm happy I won. Sorry you lost, and not in a joking way, but it's just I understand where you're coming from, and because I would feel that way in the reverse. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't compete, because when you go and for a job interview, and you're up against 100 people, and you're the one who gets the job, do you not have empathy for the 99 people who don't have any money coming in? Or do you? But on the other hand, you're super happy you got the job, right? So exactly. We're human beings. We have these things that we deal with. But then there's psychopathy. I always say that wrong. I cannot get to the new methodology. Psychopathy. Psychopathy, where there is no line. You're already over the line, and there's no anything else. You're just there. So your grandiose thinking is grandiose thinking. Your lack of empathy is lack of empathy. It's just there in all the ways. But we do tend to have, in the psychiatric world and in the modern world, a whole bunch of labels that everybody's getting these days. And so it's like, I have Asperger's, I have autism, I have ADHD, I have this, I have that. And I'm like, wow, we got an awful lot of labels we never used to even know existed. So I think some of it is just we're normal human beings, and we have any normal group of normal human beings, that bell curve thing or the continuum, we're all going to be somewhere, different places. This person's going to be more outgoing. This person's going to be shyer. This person's more energetic. This person's more lazy. Or not lazy, but not so energetic. My sister is an Energizer bunny. And she can get up and do stuff just like crazy. And I know people think I'm energetic, but I'm not. I'm a super, not energetic person. I can read books for hours and not move at all. And I can be super lazy, but unless I have a goal, and then I can push toward that. But I always wanted her energy, bottle that and give it to me. But we're different people, and we have different abilities and different things. Yeah. That's just normal human beings. So I don't know about all these labels these days. It gets me. I always wonder how accurate any of them are. And even here, does he have some Asperger's? Because we have a new label. or is he just a straight up psychopath? What about his dad? Yeah, I think you're right though that his dad does exhibit some things, and he does admit that he thinks that his behaviors are very similar to his son's. He just didn't end up being a killer.
Yeah, and also the thing he said in his book, I didn't read it. I only read excerpts from it, but well, he said that he had fantasies about arsonry, and he was sitting in church and thinking about how it would feel like to kill somebody.
I don't know if he's saying that just because he wants to give his son something to work with. You know, I don't know about that truth either. He does claim he was interested in bombs and fire.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm trying to think. Okay, Betty, look back. I'm gonna say, look back and be honest. When you were a teenager or a kid, did you ever think of something that was weird?
Of course, that was what I was going to tell you. That I think that everybody has thought about, killing themselves, killing somebody else, but that's what I mentioned, the moral compass, our conscience. Well, when that thought enters, I like talking about this subject because it's really what defines the qualities in us. Because when you have a bad thought, you can choose. Your conscience will tell you this is a bad thought. Why? Because it will harm people. Okay, so the empathy in you would tell you, well, you have to stop this thinking. You have to get rid of that thinking.
Right.
But a person who still have a conscience, but is indulging in that thinking, will still, move his conscience a little bit to the wrong side. Every time he thinks about it, he will get excuses to do it. So his conscience will move. Yeah. So it will be skewed in that way. But the conscience in me would tell me right off the bat, if I get that thought, no, that is wrong.
Right.
But the thought will be there. It's
not like you don't have curiosities about life and death. I have to point this out, Benny, because I think what you're saying is so true. I've never forgotten this one thing that I remember from, I must have been, I'm going to say, I was coming back from New York City from Christmas, I believe. And we had a little Volkswagen Beetle, and I was always the poor schmuck that sat in the middle. My sisters got these. I was the youngest. My sisters got to fall asleep. They fell asleep on either side of me, right, going back to Jersey. And I'm like in the middle like this because I couldn't fall asleep because I couldn't lean, right? And it always pissed me off. But anyway, I remember sitting in this car going across to New Jersey. And we'd had our Christmas. It was lovely and everything. Christmas Eve, we'd have Christmas Eve at grandmother's house. It was grand. And then it was late. So we're going back late. My father driving my mother there. And I remember this thought that occurred to me. My thought was this, and this, I had to be 7 years old or 8, so it's creepy that I thought this then, because I wasn't a very homicidal or suicidal thinking kind of kid. I wasn't that at all. But for some reason, and I remember this so clearly, I said to myself, what would happen if I reached up and grabbed my father's hair and pulled his head back? And I realized at that moment that it would cause him to lose control of the car and crash. And at that moment, I said, oh my God, I have the power to do this as a tiny child. If I just reached up and did that, the car would crash. And I was creeped out by the concept, because I'm like, oh my God, it's that simple. I said to myself, it's 1 second is between me and that. 1 second. And what would keep me from just doing that? And I remember thinking how bizarre that concept was, that I could do that. Yeah. And no one could stop me. And of course, I went through this like for 30 minutes because I thought it was so horrifying. And that was the end of that. I did have a conscience, and I never did anything. I had no interest in doing that. I loved my family. I didn't want to die. But the thought that I could do that is insane. Wow, that at 7 or 8 years old, I think I was only 7, I could do that. Creepy. But like you said, I think when Lionel says, I thought about making a bomb, but he didn't make bombs and blow up things. So there was something that said, it's curious and interesting because fascinating that I, as a growing human being, could be able to do certain things, but I'm not going to do those things. something will stop me. And what something hopefully stops you is that you're not a psychopath, that you are
And the next time that thought comes to you, you will fight it off at once because you'll not entertain it. But the problem is those who entertain it, they indulge in it, and they will push the conscience to be and use the excuses.
It horrified me, and I was horrified by the fact that this could be even something someone could do. It was horrifying. And that was, I never thought about that again. I know that, we took family trips, and I never again thought of that never crossed my mind again, except for that stuck in my head as a moment in time when I realized that even a child of seven could do something like that. It was freaky. I mean, I don't know why I thought of that. I wasn't from a creepy family. My parents were, not alcoholics or drinkers or drug people. I have two sisters. We had a nice home. I mean, we lived in a beautiful place. We came back from a great Christmas. I have no idea why that crossed my mind at that moment, except I was pissed I couldn't go to sleep.
There's a Chinese saying that goes like, you cannot prevent a bird from flying over your head, but you can prevent it from building a nest. And that's why crazy thoughts, they come out of the blue, right? This, like the same when we are sleeping and we are dreaming, we dream of the most weird things that we will never have imagined in a awakened state. And there was actually a comedian called Bill Burr.
Oh yeah, Bill Burr.
He said, and he said, what sets me what makes me different from a psychopath. He said when I'm driving down the street, I'm driving and I can listen to a radio and I can think, I can go on and reach the end of this road and I'll be nobody that's like before. But if I just, make a slight turn to the right, I'll be running over 10 people, and I'll be on the front of every newspaper in the world.
Right.
But I choose not to.
But I choose not to.
I choose not to. But you got that choice all the time, he says, and
that's true.
That's what makes us different from a psychopath, is that we don't, even though we get the thought, we can immediately see the consequences, and it doesn't go with our empathy, it doesn't go with our conscience, it doesn't go with our moral compass.
Right.
But we will have the same thoughts. I'm sure. Also, even when we are presented with a guy like Jeffrey, we tend to think, what is necrophilia? Okay, we have to picture it, right? So, but in that. But there we would, a normal person would say, who doesn't have those tendencies, would say, that is gross, that is appalling.
Yeah, that one hasn't worked for me.
Yeah, that doesn't really work for
Not
me.
one of my fantasies.
Okay, the grandmother, I think, and I really love the way you put it, because I wrote it in my notes that there might have been a slight emotional connection to her, but I really think she was just there and served the purpose for him to get what he wanted. She trusted him, and he manipulated her to think he would give up the booze, he would go into religion. He actually went to church with her all the while. He was killing and dismembering people in the same house. No, I don't think he had any genuine feelings for his grandmother at all. She was just there for a purpose, and he could.
And she was alone.
Take advantage.
This is an important point. I didn't bring this up, but I'm a grandmother, and I live in my own house, and I have one grandchild, and grandmothers want to be somebody to somebody, So I can see her living in her little house. Her son is off someplace doing whatever he's doing, and she has this opportunity to take her grandson in and have company. And she liked it, because they showed that in the movie. They were sitting there with her watching TV with the little TV trays, and eating the little TV dinners. And she enjoyed the fact that, my God, she has somebody in the home with her. And he was playing that, of course, because he needed the house. And so he was like, yes, Grandma, I love you very much. I'll go to church with you. So she was, I think the company meant so much to her that she was willing to overlook that the guy, her grandson had issues. Her grandson had problems, and she was concerned about them, but if she could deal with them, then she could keep him in her life. And he stayed there for quite a long time. So for her, and
she believed actually that he had feelings for her, and Lionel thought that there was a connection there.
He did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think there was any. She was just there and served the purpose at that time.
Absolutely. You can the thing is, serial killers can like their pets because a pet is a thing to them. It's a cute thing. That's why some serial killers appear to like their children until they kill them. You know, they have a wife who's a pet. They have 2 children who are pets, and as long as those 3 pets are pleasing them, they enjoy them. They enjoy them because those pets do things for them. The wife gives them sex and makes food and makes them, gives them a cover for everything else they do. And the 2 children are like, "Oh, I love you, Daddy," until they get older and they start going, "I don't like that, Daddy." And then, then their pets become annoying. At that point, they kill the pets. So, because they never actually loved them. So Dahmer could easily have one day just woken up and killed his grandmother if she annoyed him.
Yeah, enough. And also he had good reasons to not kill her because she actually gave him money. Yeah, and
she was money bags.
and he was able to live there and do whatever he wanted to do. What he wanted to do was to do what he wanted to do in the basement, right? So she served the purpose for him until she eventually kicked him out. Of course, then he couldn't use her anymore because if he had genuine feeling for her, he would go back and visit her and have a relationship with her. But he didn't have any.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that part. But yeah, did he ever go back and spend any time with poor Granny?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so the victims. Well, I think you presented the most important part of the victim. I think that the turning point in that there must have happened something at the ambassador, Stephen told me, because he didn't like to talk about that because he had a blackout. So we don't really get what with all the others, because I find it odd that he can talk about, that he, in a monotone voice, he says, well, I render him unconscious and I masturbated and then I strangled him and then I dismembered him and I cut off his head and I put it in there. But he cannot talk about what happened in the ambassador.
Right.
So it must be something that really struck a chord with him, something that was really,
Well, I have to say one thing about his victims, which I didn't mention during the show, and this is a pun, but he had good taste. So, I mean, I look at the men that he picked.
Yeah.
That was a hot bunch of men. I mean, they were very good looking, very well proportioned. That's why he had an eye for an attractive man. He really did, because he did sometimes go for slightly smaller men in the 2 Laotians, but I don't know what their bodies were like, but he did like a good chest. I mean, that was something he really enjoyed. And he actually did in his childhood do weightlifting. That was one thing his father thought, I'm finally getting him interested in something. But, that was, again, useful to him because if he could improve his body, he could then get other better bodies. Because if you're a crappy looking dude with no kind of physique, you're not going to get guys to come home with you. But if you're a built guy, then you can get other built guys. And so I think he had a good eye for the men he picked. The victims were attractive people. So.
Yeah, the same thing was the reason I go to the gym is so that when I come home, my wife will say, "Well, you look good." I don't know.
That's a good reason.
I'm not even. Yeah, that's a good reason. No, but I think the victim. I think the one that sticks out is Conrad, the one that was 14 years old, because they were all more than 20 years old. It was Stephen Hicks was 19, but they were all
because
like
they could go to gay clubs. Because he went to them bathhouses and gay clubs, and you had to be over age to go to those. Before, but the other ones, like I don't know where one was a mall. I know he picked them up in a mall. I'm not sure if he picked both of them up in a mall. I can't quite remember that, but that's how he ended up with the slightly younger ones. And he said, I didn't know how old they were. And maybe he didn't. I don't know that Dahmer did, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we don't know. Yeah.
Again, because they were Asian and Laotians are slightly smaller in stature.
Yeah.
I give people a break on certain things because that's why I said the police may not have known either, because when you are one particular race and maybe you only hang around that particular race, your eye isn't able to distinguish as much from people of different races and different countries. It doesn't register with you. So for Dahmer, it may not have registered either. He might have thought he was 18. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I don't know that he cared. You know?
No, but I think that was the one that stuck out because he was so young. But he was also a very good-looking
Oh, he was.
boy. Yeah, he
He
was.
was.
So
I don't think
okay,
he picked a bad-looking guy.
no.
Yeah.
You're right. Even though it might be hard for me to judge because I'm more to the ladies. But,
Well, as a female, I can still judge, even though I know they're all gay.
Yeah.
I mean, I still can judge and say, too bad. You know, I mean, it's like that's what happens to women all the time. Like, oh my God, that guy's so good looking. They say, I'm sorry, I'm gay. And you're like, God damn it. You know, because I thought you were hot. You know?
Even as a straight man, I can tell you that I can look at the actors and immediately say that is a good-looking guy, but I don't feel any inclination to any sexual
right
emotions. No, and that's because I am, as I am, and that's fine. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I think even people who, regardless of their sexual attractions to people, can recognize attractive people. I certainly recognize that with women as well. I think there's so many actresses and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that actress is just gorgeous, and people are like, why would you say that? I'm like, she is gorgeous, you know what I mean? She is. And, she's a thing of beauty. So, no, I can recognize that.
You're right. Well, about the trial, I only have he was sentenced, but again, he was legally sane. And I think you covered it so well that I don't have much to add to that. But the finding religion, I have to say something about that. You know what? I said,
go ahead. I didn't mention that.
I said, ha. I think that when he talks about him getting into Christian creation and now believe he has to be accountable to the Lord Jesus, he sounds phony. Actually, for the first time, I think he sounds really, really phony. He does not care about Jesus or anything related to religion, but it serves a purpose for him to be important and play a role where he'll manipulate some people to think that he actually had an epiphany and finally found God and some remorse, and now justice will be served, which is all just a play for him. He doesn't
totally agree.
care.
This happens with lots of serial killers, Benny. A lot of them find God and quote find God and Jesus in prison or Allah or whatever they decide they find, because it gives them sympathy from other people, and in their own minds, which actually is the only thing that matters, is that they can justify things now and say, "See, everything's going to be okay." I did want to point out that he was baptized. And I thought the baptism thing was just interesting. I was like, I'm looking at him being baptized in the movie, and I'm like, I would suggest the Hoover Dam. But instead of like ducking him underwater, just drop him off the top of the Hoover Dam. Let that baptism take place. That was a very homicidal thought that came through my mind. But yes, I totally agree with you, and I completely forgot about his
but that's also
conversion.
all I want to say about that, because I don't really care about what he said about religion.
Yeah.
Then the last part is the mental sickness and diagnosis, and I think that you can throw any diagnosis at me, and I'll tell you if I think it's right or wrong. First, they said, cannibalism must be a sign of insanity. I said no.
A sign of what?
That he was insane because of the cannibalism.
Because it's so off the charts.
Yeah, because between you and me, hopefully nobody will hear this except all the people on YouTube. But it's morally wrong to eat a person, but it's not morally wrong to eat an animal, right? So flesh is flesh. So the eating part is not really bad to think about if you're in a situation like the plane that went down. So I'm just saying that is not a sign of being insane. That can be a sign of you need to do that to survive. So I don't think that is. Except he
didn't need to do that.
He didn't need to do that, but it's not a sign of insanity.
That's the difference, because there are times where yes, you could legitimately say, the plane has crashed and 3 people have died, and we're all going to die unless we eat these people until help comes. And there is a way to be able to rationalize that. I mean, when I was in China, Annie Haley, who usually is here. We were in China together, and we were served on the menu. There was something like godmother of a donkey something, and we're like, we thought it was tofu because I always make fancy names with tofu. And so as I said, "Is this tofu?" And the woman said, "No, it's donkey." I'm like, "Oh," and we have a donkey. Okay, my family has a donkey. His name is Jitterbug, and I'm like, should I eat the donkey
I know.
or not? Because mostly I'm a vegetarian, but occasionally when I travel, I'm like, oh, well, I can't control the world when I'm traveling. So I'm like, I wonder what donkey tastes like. Is this, I may be cannibalistic here because I have a donkey now. So Annie and I had the donkey, and both of us said, damn, that's good donkey. so my thought process is such that I can truly imagine, and of course this will put me back in a psychopath category. I can truly imagine. I'm one of those very logical, realistic people. Like I've been places. I was in Jamaica once, and I went to the thing called a kumina, which is some kind of religious ceremony in the mountains, a kind of a voodoo-y thing. And it was with a college group, and I was a vegetarian, 100% vegetarian at the time, and they killed 2 goats in front of us, and in ways that you don't want to ever see. Like one of the guys actually picked up the goat by the neck with his teeth and danced with it and then sawed his throat. It was grotesque stuff I've ever seen. The students were horrified. And these are all the meat eaters, mind you, right? Mm. They were horrified by what they saw of an animal being killed. After they killed the animals, then they cooked them. And then they gave us that for dinner. Yeah. And the American meat-eating people could not eat it because they were so appalled. And I'm thinking, dude, you eat meat, what the heck? Just because you saw how it's killed, now it bothers you. Myself, because I've spent a lot of time in other cultures, I'm like, okay, I'm not a meat eater, but I think it's rude for me to not eat the food that's presented. And the goat is already dead. There's nothing I can do about that. So I might as well culturally get along. So I ate the goat, and I have only one complaint, Betty. That if you're going to kill the goat that way, you should curry it properly. I have good curried goat from Jamaica. That was not curried properly. I'm like, damn, this stuff is not good goat. And it pissed me off because I'm like, at least you could have done that right. But I was logical in my thinking. So I can imagine I'm on that mountain, and we're going to die unless we eat 3 people. I'm like, well, probably tastes like donkey. I could probably live with it. But Jeffrey Dahmer did not have to eat anybody, and yet he did.
But the rationalizing thought would be that they are already dead.
Okay.
Right. So
why not?
Why not? And I think for a sane person, as I am, normal thinking with a moral compass, I would never do that because it's still a human being, and you have to be respectful for it because
wait a minute, Benny. Why would you be respectful for a person you never cared about as a human, that you actually murdered with your own hands, had sex with when they were dead? I think your respect for them as a human being is out the door.
Yeah. Zero. Yeah, of course. And that's why I think that I can rationalize why he would think that cannibalism was not no problem. Why would he eat them? They were there, and it tasted good, and they gave him power and control, and he would be like God.
That's the thing. He got one more round out of it. I think that, to me, is the point. Because he did what he did, and as he keeps going, you're losing more and more opportunities to get that thrill and power and control. But if you can then eat them, you get one more level of, look what I've done. My God, I'm even eating you. That is so cool, man. So that's the next level. And the final level, in my opinion, when you get the skulls and things, I would say the chances of him doing things with those skulls is pretty high. Mm-hmm. Because again, it's one more level that no matter how minimal you are, how much I've already done to you, I can do one more thing to you. Isn't that awesome? That's why I don't believe in the relationship garbage. I think it's all about power and control and the fact that he can do all these things.
Same with the elder. When he went out in the street, he was actually nobody. He was only the person he wanted to manipulate people to think he was. But when he came home, and if he completed that altar, he could sit in front of the elder and be the world's most important person to himself. But but that was the only time that he had, where he could really boost his ego to be like completely
Wow.
out of the universe, right? But out in the street, he was like nobody. It was nobody.
Hey, I just thought about that, Benny. When you're talking about the baptism and conversion thing, think of the thrill. Not only did I kill 17 people, plus a whole bunch of people I didn't tell you about, maybe, and did all the sexual things I did before and during and after their death. And that, not only that, I did all kinds of things to their bodies, and I ate them, and I played with all their body parts. Not only that, but God now loves me. In spite of all of that, because, again, we are looking at the concept of Christianity, which does say that, that is possible, that God can love you in spite. But for normal people, yes. But for him, in his own perverse little world in his mind, that isn't a matter of a moment where you realize that you could still be loved in some way. That in spite of everything that you've given yourself over to God and all that. I'm not going to get into the religious things. I try not to do this on this channel.
No.
For Jeffrey Dahmer, he was using God the same way he used people. He was using God to make himself almighty, to make himself be even more
equal
powerful
to God.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't believe his was a true conversion, and this is, of course, if I look at this and, any pastor or minister, priest who talks to a person like this and says, okay, I'm going to, you can still be saved. I understand where they're coming from, but God, and I'm not doing religious anymore, but God would be the one who knows if he is or he isn't, because he would know the true mind of Jeffrey Dahmer, not the minister. The minister is just going through the motions of what he's trying to allow that person to have that moment, and it's up to but only God knows what he really thinks and who he really is.
But there could also be another religious element in it when we think about Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, when the snake said, you are not going to die if you eat from this fruit, and they ate it, and the snake said, you'll be like God, and your eyes will be open. So he ate from the forbidden fruit, the flesh, and he became like God, and his eyes was open. He was the one who could decide what is right and wrong. There could be a parallel in that. I don't know. But I'll just let's not get into religious stuff at all.
Whether religiously or in the spiritual world or whatever, Dahmer, from here on, Dahmer is no longer on the earth. Dahmer is, and if different people's opinions, whether he's just dead forever or whether he is gone someplace, God would know whether he was being truthful or just playing another one of Dahmer's games. And that's the comfort I always have, that we don't have to here on earth understand what's going to happen to somebody after earth at all. It's funny because I'm always reminded of this is a Hindu thing, but it's a fascinating take on what happens after somebody commits crimes, right? So what happens in this particular Hindu thing is that these princes who are the good guys, right? The good guys. I think there are five of them. The Pandavas, they were good guys, and their cousin was the bad guy, right? And they're all so now after death, they've died, and now they're hoping to go to heaven, right? And so they find out that, wait a minute, they say, they go to heaven. Now, if they're told, let's see, how does this work? First they see the evil cousin, and he's in heaven. And they're like, what the heck? This doesn't seem right. He's out there, women are feeding him grapes and all that stuff, and he's like, hey, he's having a great time. They are being taken to hell. And they're like, wait a minute, we're the good guys. Why are we going to hell? And that bad guy's in heaven. And so they're told, this is what they're told. Oh, yeah. Well, what happens is, if you do a little evil, which everybody does in their life, you go to hell first. And then because the big part of you did good, after you finish with the hell part, you go to heaven for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
The bad guy may have done this much good, so we send him to heaven first, but then he goes to hell for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
So it
It's
was
like the
interesting
purgatory.
because they were like, we're gonna bounce that. But it was funny because you think of that and you're like, oh, that's an interesting thing there, you know. So the bad guy's like, oh, I'm having a great time. This is fantastic. I'm in heaven. Yeah, but not for very long. You know, we're gonna send you someplace else. But this is a Hindu thing. But I think for all of us human beings, regardless of our religions, we know that Dahmer did bad on Earth. We wish he had been caught sooner, which was our responsibility to catch him sooner. We had the ability to do so. Finally, he was found guilty. He was put in prison. Yeah. Some other people took care of him. So now he's no longer with us. Whether he found God truly repented for his sins, or it was just another Dahmer fake, is up to God.
I think,
and not us.
Yeah, he did a Dahmer.
He did a Dahmer. I tend to agree. I think he did a Dahmer. I don't buy for a minute that he had any true stake in the
no.
That.
and the same when they throw around these diagnoses with borderline personality disorder. I don't think so. Schizotypal personality
I don't know
disorder.
How to pronounce it either.
No, I don't care because I don't believe it.
No.
But paraphilias, okay. Yeah.
Paraphilias. A lot of people have paraphilias and not necessarily.
Yeah, that's also
psychopathic.
Exactly. That's just
right.
If we look at the people in maybe 80% of the population are attracted. 50% of the population is attracted, male, female, and maybe 30% male,
right.
female, right? But then there are people who are naturally attracted to, sexually attracted to activities, trees. Trees. Yeah. I saw that.
That has been increasing. There have been paraphilias have been increasing to some strange levels these days, and I almost think like people are desperate for some. Like their emotions have been burned out, and they're just not. The need for excitement is increased. So they really, and there's so much on the internet. They're introduced to some really freaky things that are concerning. Oh, I just want to mention this, by the way, in case you didn't see it, Benny. Michaela says definitely not going to Benny's for a dinner date. I haven't been able to see everybody's comments here, but I think that one's pretty funny. Oh, Hannibal Lecter vibe. Woo! I think this comment is interesting. Marie says, if psychopaths can't change, I don't believe they can really believe in God either. That would be.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, after death, maybe they learn something different. I don't know, because I don't know I can't state what happens after death to a level which every single person in the humanity will agree. But yes, I think before death, their ability to feel to believe in a superior God is impossible because they are the superior ones in their own grandiose thinking. So they can't have somebody else be bigger, and they have to submit. And one of the things we know about Dahmer, that dude did not like to submit at all. So I with you, Benny, 100% on that was a complete bunch of crap that he was playing with the getting him baptized and all that nonsense. So glad you brought that up because I didn't bring that up during the show. So.
There's only one point left, and
okay.
This is maybe a crazy point, but there was whenever I read about Jeffrey Dahmer, what's documentary, there's a song that I know. It's not my favorite song, but it's just the worst of the song that really sounds like this was what he was thinking. I'm going to put it in the chat. It's a song by an old English band called The Cure, but it's just that those lyrics just really, really, really like I think that he was thinking, or maybe I cannot even put it in. I can read it out loud instead.
Okay, good to that.
Yeah. So he might be singing this as he was of course not thinking about Jeffrey Dahmer when he did the song in 1981
right.
or whatever, but he might be thinking of his girlfriend or whatever. But he sings.
That's frightening.
He sings, No, but it's just the thinking here behind the song is really, really like I think Jeffrey Dahmer would have said. Okay, he sings, it's not a case of doing what's right. It's just the way I feel that matters. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't really care. It's not a case of share and share alike. I take what I require. I don't understand. You say it's not fair. You expect me to act like a lover, consider my moves and deserve the reward, to hold you in my arms and wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for something to happen. It's not a case of telling the truth. Some lines just fit the situation. Call me a liar, you would anyway. It's not a case of aiming to please. You know, you're always crying. It's just your part in the play for today. So I think that like the mind of a psychopath is like, you know, I don't really care about anything, and you expect me to act like a lover and just sit there and wait for something to happen. You know, I don't have any emotions about it. I don't care. I don't want to spend time.
Do put that in there, because I'm curious. That's fascinating. That is absolutely so accurate. I
could just put in the song name because I don't think it takes my feeling.
Yeah, can you type in the song name?
Yeah.
Yeah, type in the song. I'm going to put it on the screen because I want to put it on the screen so people who aren't seeing the chat can definitely see that. Because
I hope the band doesn't come after me now.
The guy who wrote this, I wonder about the guy who wrote this, because
his name is Robert
that's
Smith.
Concerning. Oh, here it is. Okay. Benny says, The Cure. The Cure. Yes. Play for today. Fascinating. That's really fascinating. Robert Smith. Okay, guys, get this straight. The Cure, Play for Today, and Robert Smith. That's fascinating, because, you know, it's interesting that anybody could even figure that part out unless they experience that themselves.
They did a concert in Denmark a month ago, and I was there.
The Cure?
So they played this song, yeah.
Wow.
So they are like 65
but
now.
Robert Smith wrote this, right?
Yeah. And
do we know much more about Robert Smith? Like, does he have issues?
Yeah. I think you have to Google Robert Smith and The Cure.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd because it's. I mean, there are people who study psychopathy and serial killers, like myself. I can write stuff in their thinking because I know what they think. So if I'm writing a book, and I have a book, by the way, I'm 3/4 of the way finished with. I hope you all like it when I put it out. It's a fictional story, but I'm writing it from a particular person's point of view, and I can do that because I understand how they think. That is not how I think. Believe me, it's not how I think.
But you know how they think, yeah.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it. But you know, you either write. There's only two ways to write this. One is that you actually understand the way another person thinks, or that is actually the way you think. And so the question is, which one is it? And you have to look at the person's life, what they do, and other issues connected to that to find out whether they're writing from their soul, which may not be much of one, or they're writing from what learned information from their profession or from whatever else that they're able to write stuff. Because I certainly have done this quite a few times in different situations where I've written which has been a pack of lies. No, it's not me. I'm writing a pack of lies, and people are like, "Oh my God, how could you do that?" And I'm like, "Well, it's either I'm psychopathic, or I have a knowledge enough, and I'm also able to write really quickly and really, well enough. I'm not going to say great. I'm just going to say well enough."
I think Killing for Sport was one of my best books so far.
Well, it's funny. Killing for Sport and The Profiler were written 20 years ago. And Killing for Sport is a little more popular. Profiler, people absolutely hate that book. I get nothing but negative reviews. Some people are reading it today and going, "Oh my God, I hate this book." They give me 1 star and they're just trash the living hell out of me. I wrote this 20 years ago, over 20 years ago. And
I think I learned a lot because it answers a lot of the questions I had.
I'm glad you got the point of the book. Yeah. But the book was Killing for Sport was not intended to be a book about my life in hunting serial killers. That was a stupid. That was the publisher's stupid line that they put up there. I would call it
it's a FAQ.
There's a what?
It's a FAQ. Most common questions about serial killers.
No.
In my mind,
Killing for Sport was. I did a lot of tongue-in-cheek with Killing for Sport because I was so tired of all the myths. I did do a kind of a humorous approach, very flippant. People call me flippant quite often. They don't like it, but I can't actually say they're wrong because I am flippant quite often. That is my nature. I wrote a rather flippant book about serial killers because I wanted to get rid of a lot of the mythology. But the Profiler was written from my personal experiences of entering into what I thought were how things were working, how profiling worked, how police investigations worked. And I was telling my true experience as a novice, as a naive person entering into this, and how I was shocked by a lot of things. It was supposed to be labeled American Woman's, I forgot what the crap was going to be, search for justice for victims and their families. But it came out as completely different. So people read the book and they're expecting, oh, it's John Douglas. She's going to tell us all about all these cases and it's not that. And so and it's also written 20 years ago. So I'm a little bit more, I've been around a lot longer and I have a lot more knowledge. And so I look back and go, whoa, the cases I worked on are still accurate, but my tone is a little, okay. So people read and go, boy, I hate that woman. So that book is like not doing well. And still has, it was attacked to begin with because I had a lot of haters when I first put the book out. So they attacked the book for the wrong reasons. Now some people are attacking the book I understand their reasoning, but it's because the title is wrong and the timing is wrong. And it's I still think it's a great book because it'll teach you how to profile, how you should profile crimes. It's all that's actually in there. And it's the first honest book about profiling, I think, that's out there, because the FBI profiles would say stuff, well, I did this and I did that. And it's all bullshit, But I just said, here's what I see, and this is how I profile this. So how you're supposed to look at the crime scene evidence. But, when you come in with a different idea of what you're going to get, it often doesn't appeal to you, and it's unfortunate. So I try not to actually look at my reviews on that book because it's like really depressing. It's like oh, okay, well, nice back.
But the Killing for Sports, that I think that it has great reviews, right?
It has adequate reviews, but I have to understand, I am a renegade profiler. I've never been FBI, and there are people out there who do not approve of how I got to where I got to. And
that's the same with
but again, it's also just the world the way it is. The reviews are mixed, but it's also cheap now, I think, so it's good. It's a good deal. It's funny. It's like things happen in time. Like How to Save Your Daughter's Life that I wrote was not well received when it came out because there are people like, oh, you're blaming the victim. Now when people read it, they really like it. Because I know I'm not trying to blame the victim. I'm trying to save their children's lives. My fiction book, Only the Truth, is very well received. People love that book. I haven't heard anything negative, very little negative about that book. So writing fiction is more fun. But it's the way the world is, and if you're out in the public eye, things happen like that, and you have to be able to just accept it. I mean, I get nasty comments all the time on my YouTube channel too, calling me every name in the book, and
we don't see those because I think then you have removed them, or because I don't see the negative.
I try to do my best to block the person off my channel. I'm like, hey, bye, but I do that, but I can't. As my channel grows a little bit bigger, I can't catch all of them. So I know they're out there now, and there's nothing I can do, and I don't worry about it terribly much. I mean, I am who I am. There are people who like what I do, and there are people who don't. And there are 50 million channels. There are 50 million channels on YouTube. Pick another one.
Anybody is right or entitled to their opinion, but I don't.
Absolutely.
But if let's say I was disagreeing with you and I thought you were like the worst profile ever, why would I subscribe to your channel? Why would I even spend time writing negative reviews? No, why would I spend time writing negative
Benny, you have to understand. they don't subscribe. What's always interesting to me is they come on and they say something really nasty, like you're a big fat fraud and you're an idiot and blah, blah, blah. And after I block them, my subscription rate doesn't drop because they never subscribe to the channel. It's like they come to one video and I don't appeal to them. And that's okay. I understand that there are videos out there that people love, channels out there that people love that do not appeal to me. I do not go to the channels and attack them. I just let them, like, okay, it's not my thing. I just don't go back. And I would hope that people do the same here. But that's not the way, in the internet world, people like to be able to say whatever they want to say because they can. And so they like to, and I'm not saying they don't have personality disorders. They probably do. But, so when I put the Casey Anthony, my recent one was the Casey Anthony video, I lost a whole bunch of subscribers. I was like shocked. I'm like, what the hell? Who thinks Casey Anthony didn't do it? Apparently a whole bunch of people. And they're like her fans, and they're like, oh, Pat Brown, how dare you? Unsubscribe.
Yeah.
You just have to have a sense of humor. You'll lose your mind.
Yeah, but you didn't lose anything by losing those subscriptions, I would say.
And I just want to let you know, I did not pull my dad's hair and cause the car to go off the cliff. And you do not invite people over to eat them. Is that correct, Ben? I just want to clear that up.
For me, it's perplexing that somebody who have subscribed to your channel, because they must have agreed with some of your views, and your views are based on solid evidence. And how can those subscribers even think that Casey Anthony was innocent?
One wonders, Betty, but here's how it works. A lot of people come to the channel for one case only. And if I speak on that case, they're happy about it. If I say something negative about some other case I don't like, then they knock me off. It's YouTube, it's YouTube, and you just have to whatever. I have one of the greatest things about Patreon is that my people here who have joined to Patreon are the people that really truly like the channel and like to learn and like to discuss. And I've had such a good time with that. So that gives me my home base of people. So that makes me feel good, and I continue on. And there's other people, there's always going to be people who don't like me. I can't please everybody.
But there's a lot of people enjoying it.
Oh, that's good. And there's some people who can't stand me, but that's okay. Because, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I mean, I'm not so narcissistic. I can't recognize that I don't appeal to everybody. That's okay.
Doesn't apply to us all?
Yeah. But I will come and have dinner at your house, Benny. I don't think you're going to eat me.
Yeah.
But I am worried about the submarine. Did you or did you not get rid of the submarine?
I'll take you for a tour of the submarine. Yeah.
If anybody doesn't know, that's a Danish submarine crime case. So Benny promises me when I get to Denmark, which I'd love to return to sometime this spring or summer, that I can meet up with Benny and he's not going to take me to a private tour of the submarine. I'm going to check with your wife on that one.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, two things.
Yes,
Pat. One thing is, I'm the squeaking wheel. So here's a request.
Yes, Benny is, and he's a great squeaky wheel.
Okay.
Your request.
Yeah. But I know you already looked into it, but I think you kind of forgot it. But it might not be so interesting. But I thought that Nathan Carman case where he sailed out with his mother. I talked about it before. Also, he has Asperger's and he's quite monotone. You actually wrote to me that he reminded you of the Mr. Ripley.
Yes.
And so it's not solved.
Which one?
He probably the Carman Nathan case.
Who?
Is Carman Nathan.
Carman Nathan.
Yeah. Okay, I'll write to you.
Please do.
Case.
Yeah, I want to say what Betty is saying about being a squeaky wheel. I get so many requests for cases, and what I do is I add them to my list, and then I try to figure out which ones to do because I'm trying to figure out ones that I can have something useful to say about. There's a lot of cases which are just cases that are interesting, but I don't have a lot to contribute. Now, if I were just a true crime person who's doing stories, like some true crime channels, and I could tell a great story about this particular crime, that would work, but I don't tell stories. I do analysis. So if there's nothing too much to analyze, or I don't have enough to go with, sometimes I do a little piece on the Hangouts. But to do a full show, it has to be something that has some meat to it for me, that I can actually give some educational stuff to others. But I get so many requests in. They go on my list, but a lot of times I just can't get to them because I can only do. I hope to be here for if YouTube, if I could keep this channel going. I hopefully will have 5 years or 7 years to keep working on all these cases. So I will get to a lot of things eventually. But
I want to say.
But if you're a squeaky wheel and you keep pushing me, and it is a good case, it'll get here sooner than later.
and I'm like that. But you already, I think you already did 8 of my requests. I think much more than anybody else.
Oh, she put this up here. The Carmen. Oh, they put this up there. Sorry, not she. You. Carmen Nathan case. Carmen Nathan. Yep. Okay, I will look into that. And
I think actually
Marie
his name
says,
is
have
Nathan
you seen the
Carmen.
documentary about the submarine case? I have not seen that yet, so I have to look at that. And Lisa thinks we should do a podcast with Pat and Benny. I think she might be right. I think it's quite fun. So,
I might scare
wait, Michaela has an Australia case. Now, see, here's an interesting point. And Janine Vaughn has been missing for over 20 years. It's an interesting case from Australia. And I love to do Australia, New Zealand cases. I love to do Asian, Oceania, Asia. I'd like to try to get cases from around the world. The problem sometimes with these cases is they're so old that somebody went missing, and I've got nothing to work with. It's like, okay, they went missing. Maybe it was a serial killer, but there's no actual good information. So there's nothing I can do with it. And so that's sometimes what happens. People say, why can't you do this case? I'm like, because I got nothing. I got nothing. They went missing. I'm going to guess it's a serial killer. I got nothing because there's no real information for me to build on. And so that's sometimes why I don't do them. Let's see what Carrie says. Benny, do you know about the Charlie Brandt case? He murdered his mother at age 13. Years later, he murdered other women. Do you know that case?
No.
Okay.
I'm the type of person who doesn't know very much about anything.
You're such a liar, Benny. Such a liar. No. Look. Oh, Benny and Pat, still a better love story than Twilight. My God, I hope so. I mean, I don't know that we have a love story, but I hope our time together here is not quite as creepy as that.
No.
I'm going to have to do a whole thing on Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey as a combo, demented, where people have gone seriously wrong in the fictional world.
And Weekend at Bernie.
Weekend at Bernie. Benny, I watched Weekend at Bernie's recently. I tried.
Yeah.
And I did not find it funny, and I used to love that. No. I thought it was funny back in the day, but I couldn't get through it.
That's how it is. 30 years ago, that was funny, but today it's like it's awkward and it's not really good acting.
Yeah, I was shocked. I'm like, gosh, I don't like this anymore. But Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke still works.
Yeah.
Now wait a minute. Let me finish. Benny, what are your final? You had a couple thoughts you still wanted to get out here, and I want to make sure.
The only thought I have is I feel it's a privilege that you want me to go on the show again. I feel like I'm not really worthy of being on a show like this, but
absolutely.
But as long as we have a good laugh and it's okay. But
Benny, here's the way it works. Believe me, when you're doing a YouTube show, you don't put a whole bunch of people on you can't stand. And if we're going to have a person come back more than once, it's because they have a lot to say, and people really enjoy listening to what you have to say. And I think that when we talk together, I think you're very intelligent. I think you're well researched, and you have very good points. And of course, a lot of times you agree with me, so that makes it really worth it.
Yeah, that's very important.
But even if you didn't, it's a good conversation, and I love a good conversation. And I say, even if a person doesn't agree, if it's an intelligent, good conversation, I'm okay with that. I'm not one of those people that, oh my God, you disagree with me. So, But I have people disagree with me who are idiots, and therefore it's like there's no point. But if you're disagree, but you have a good point. That's different. I can learn from that, and I may change my mind. I'm not, I'm not the kind of person that can't say, "Damn, I was wrong about that." That person made such a good point. Wow, that works. So I love having you on, Benny. I absolutely do, and everybody likes you, Betty. So that's why. See, look at this. Wait, what did you say? Benny, you're so Danish.
Because Maria is also Danish.
Well, she knows then. She knows.
She's from Denmark.
I think she's on like our.
We're taking over.
Yeah. So but no, I love having on Benny. That is always a given. So I think it makes for a great part of the show. And I'm so glad you came today because there were so many things you offered today that were interesting that allowed us to go further and deeper into certain issues, which I think is fantastic. So I'm so glad you were here. That made my day. I really did. So I have no complaints.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, and thank you all, everybody in the chat room. Thank you for being here and staying on through my technical difficulties, which started the show and ended the show. I'm like, what the hell? Not just one of those days. But anyway, thank you for being here, Benny. Thank you for everybody else being here. Again, if you're new to the channel and you're still here after all this time, do like and subscribe and join Patreon, and you see how much fun we have. So thank you very much, everybody.
Yep.